Hey, this is John with Vintage Mercantile. Chuck Gaylord is with me today. He owned a card store here in Spokane for
10 years.
10 years.
I've been doing cards since 1985.
Knows a lot about cards, and this is kind of an educational video. This is about a purchase that I made a little over a month ago. There were some Mickey Mouse cards for sale, and they came with 1,000 count boxes that were also full of cards. Wasn't really after the boxes of cards, I was after the mantle cards. Cards have been quite hot of late, and I was trying to bring in some really nice cards for the store. So this is just kind of the story of what you got to watch out for. So started off, this was an online auction, and it happens to be a place down in Ontario, Oregon, and I got online and bid on these 3 boxes of cards that each had at least one Mickey Mouse card with them. And in the pictures of one of them, there was actually another pile of cards off to the left-hand corner, which we'll try and show you the pictures of, that had another Mickey Mouse card. My first thing after I purchased the cards, which I won, each box was, one was $45, I believe the other ones were $130 and $140. I was also bidding on a single Mickey Mouse card that I dropped out at $245. Whoever won or actually lost paid about $265 for it, plus commission. So I get the cards finally show up, and I'm all excited. I pulled the mantles out. There's a 68 right there, and this is 58.
No, this is a
53.
53 Bowman.
This is a 53 Bowman, and this is a and when I called them about the 4th Mickey Mouse card that showed in the picture, they said, well, that wasn't supposed to be in the picture. I said, well, how am I supposed to bid on something that I'm seeing if it's not there? That was the first thing that kind of set me off about what was going on. Well, Chuck comes in all the time, and he came in one day and said, hey, I want to show you these Mickey Mouse cards. And I brought him out, and we started looking at them under the microscope a little bit closer. And there's little pin dot patterns on the front side of the card, around the border, through the lettering, on the back side of the card. Why don't you tell them a little bit more about?
Well, it's very deceiving. I've been in the card business since 1985. These cards were not made to be reproductions. These cards actually were made to fool people. Real reproductions say reproduction or reprint on the back of them. The main thing I noticed first with the Mickey Mantle, the dot pattern on the front is about the same as a regular dot pattern, but the dot pattern goes over the lettering. In original cards, the dot pattern does not go through the lettering. In the original 57 card also, there's no dot pattern on the back of the card. I brought in an old beat up one just to show him. And if you looked at both of these under a microscope or under a lens, this one has a absolutely definite dot pattern on the back, and the original does not.
Hey Chuck, let's look to see if I can't get my camera to focus in on the 2 different dot patterns.
I don't know if you can or not.
Let's give it a try. Hold on, folks, while your eyeballs go crazy. All right, so notice there's no dot pattern along here.
It's more of a fiber.
And now we go through, see that dot difference right there? It looks like it's pixelated, but my camera is not pixelated. Here's the other one. See that? See the difference? You can see the fibers and how clear it is versus the pixels on the other one. Is it the same way on the other side too, Chuck?
both sides
Both
are
sides,
fully.
both front sides have a dot pattern, but the dot pattern goes through the lettering in the fake card, and in the real cards, you do not see a dot pattern through the lettering.
And
And
it's-
also the border has a dot pattern, which the original does not.
Yeah, let's see if my phone can pick up the dots. Well, you see the fuzzball going on around the letters. Let's see if there's a fuzzball. Well, there's a fuzzball around there, but see the dots there? Now we go over here and you can still see the dots going across in the letters. All right, so now let's bring it on up to Chuck. We better watch out because he is huge right now. Ha, look at that.
And
Science.
anyhow, it's the same issue with all three of these that were in the boxes. The auction house probably didn't know it, I would hope. Probably the consignor did.
Why do you think the consignor did know it?
Well, because if they collect cards, if people collect especially vintage cards, buyers are very particular about vintage cards, and they will either not buy one unless it's been authenticated or if they know the card dealer they're working. So I was in the business for the shop for 10 years and sold cards since 1985, and I've come across a lot of cards that were made to fool people. And my only issue with this lot that they bought is that it was represented, yeah, that's true. They're Mickey Mantle cards, and yes, they are protected completely by the contract that the buyer signed. But what
And
bothered
notice, this is what the boxes looked like when that were in the pictures. So
None of the boxes showed the cards that were inside. All boxes were closed in all pictures. So that's why I really wasn't bidding on. That was just going to be a bonus, and if there were some good cards, great. If
And-
not, I still got the Mantle cards.
And see, silly me, I saw this writing and it said Mickey Mantle card inside. And me as the person who doesn't know anything about cards, I assumed, yeah, there's a Mickey Mantle in there, but I also assumed it would be the same era of cards that would be the Mickey Mantle era, so 50s and be all old cards. These aren't very old. What year is this one?
those are late 80s, early 90s, all of them.
Even some into the 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of the 3 boxes that they purchased at this auction, I found about 200 vintage cards and all commons. There isn't a card probably worth more than 10 cents in the whole lot. The packs of cards that they had in there had all been opened and then resealed with tape.
Let me see that.
Oh,
That
no.
suckered me as soon as I opened the box.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, at least we got some unopened packs
Yeah,
out of
they'd all
the
been
deal.
opened and retaped. The issue I have with it is that the auction house naturally is protected by the contract that the buyer signed, but you know, reputation is everything in an auction business, and it was in my card business. I had excellent reputation in the area. People trusted me. I was honest with them. I told them what something was worth and what I would pay for it, and showed them the books. And I feel in vintage cards like this, especially expensive vintage cards, that the auction house does have some liability to know what they're selling, or say we haven't authenticated these, or we know they're real. I've done a number of things for other auction houses here in Spokane. I've been called in many times to authenticate autographs, cards, and I did one huge one for a local auctioneer that we ended up with probably 40 autographed photos that I knew were good, and probably 50 that were not good. So when he sold them, he said that they had been looked at, and there were, didn't think that they were real autographs, so you were buying something just memorabilia. So he was real honest with it. He didn't try to fool anybody. He had them in 2 separate lots, and I think that's important for any business, is your honesty.
And I guess one of the things that happened with this is I just happen to be in the business of online auctions. And when he says your reputation is everything, it really is. And one thing you don't want people not getting is selling fake cards, not listing problems with an item, or not taking pictures of it. The pictures were very deceiving in that there were no close-ups. You couldn't see inside the boxes. And I gotta admit, when I called them and said I didn't get that 4th Mickey Mantle card, and they said, well, it wasn't supposed to be in there, so we're not gonna do anything. I said, well, you should probably rethink that. You should probably either send me the card or take that batch back and give me a refund. And I said, would you please look into this and give me a call back? And 8 days later, I hadn't heard from him. So I decided to call him back and said, hey, did you make a decision on what you're gonna do? And of course, at that time, I had found out that these other cards were reproductions. I didn't know that on the first phone call. So on this phone call, I was a little bit upset when I called. And I was not very nice, I will say that, because I said, I'll send you all the cards back, give me your refund. This is between you and your consignor. I said, I realize you probably didn't know that these cards were bad. If the consignor doesn't tell you, you're just bringing them in, taking pictures of them, and putting them out for auction. That's how we do it. But you also have a responsibility that if you're selling something expensive, you should probably know that it's real. Well, I got the same thing. I asked to talk to the owner, because this person was only a part owner, and I said, well, you guys talk it over and let me know what you're going to do. Please call me back within 24 hours. I'm not really happy right now. Well, I let 3 days go by before I called again, because I hadn't heard from him. And I called and I said, the same girl answered the phone, and I said, can I talk to the owner, please? Well, what's this about? I said, this is about the fake cards that were sold through your auction. And she started to say, well, we're not going to do anything. You signed a contract. I said, yes, I did sign a contract, but I really believed that I was deceived, and I, as an auctioneer, have already refunded people when things didn't work out. It may not be cards, but it wasn't described properly, and I'd rather refund them their money and have them come back to my auction. Well, after she said, well, you're not going to talk to the other person, and we're not going to do anything. I said, well, fine. I'm going to cancel through my credit card this purchase. Well, then it was, well, if you do, we are going to take legal action. I said, okay, so I'm the one that got burned here, but you're going to try and take legal action against me. So at this point, I was not too happy with them. We hung up the phone, and about 20 minutes later, they sent me a text, which I should get out and show you, that basically said, if you call us again, we'll file legal charges against you for harassment. So
I say call them.
yeah.
It's one way to get it
So
into court.
at this point, I said, well, fine. There's other ways that we can make things happen. So in the process, we're going to file Better Business Bureau charges against them. We've definitely told all the people that we deal with, be careful about going to this Ontario auction, because they're not very accurate in their descriptions.
They don't stand behind their product.
Exactly.
Well, I think that the bigger issue here is that there's a huge difference between buying something as is and buying something authentic or not authentic. There's a huge difference between the two. Where you're buying these cards as is, the ones you bid on the lots for, you would certainly assume they have authenticated $500 and $600 cards to get rid of a bunch of junk.
Right.
Because you've got about $20 worth of junk here,
Yeah.
cards that are no good and packs that have been retaped.
And so we're, by the time I had it shipped, I was in at about $440.
Excuse me, Mr. Neese, but it was closer to $500.
Okay.
It was $445 just to the auction house and another $50 to have that shipped.
Yeah, which is a whole nother thing.
It wouldn't be so bad either if they hadn't pulled every single star out of every one of these boxes. There's no Griffies. There's no Roberto Clementi's. Even the old cards, this whole stack here, there's probably one star in here and the card's all bent up. So what they've done is they've picked all of the stars out of all three of these boxes, put in a few ones to suck people in, put in some packs that have been opened and retaped, and put in 3 phony, expensive baseball cards, and charge the buyer $450. And I just don't see how they can feel like they shouldn't do something about it. But again, reputation's everything in this business, and it comes back to bite you when you do this.
And, I had no idea the condition of the cards because the pictures weren't that great. But I figured if I can make a couple $100 off the cards, and I've got some good cards in here that I can actually make a little bit extra money on, maybe I can turn my almost $500 into $1,000.
You turned it into $25.
Yeah,
Not
I did.
even yet. And then, okay, now, I get reputation as everything. I get we really got schnookered,
Yeah.
to be nice about it. But so the next guy doesn't get so snookered. That's kind of the purpose of this video. I noticed when you were looking at the open boxes, Chuck, you knew immediately the differences between the cards.
Yeah, cardboard.
By the cardboard. And so you could tell almost immediately just by looking down into the box which ones were possibly the old cards. Right. And Chuck spent 15 minutes rifling through all of these in order to find that small stack of cards. And he was telling me the difference of the cardboard. What are some other things that somebody could be looking for if they're bidding online or looking at other cards in a card store or Craigslist or eBay? What are some things that people can take away from this video instead of don't go to that Ontario auction site?
On eBay and other things, you want to look at their feedback, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Always check the feedback. In an auction house or a business, you want to email them and have them confirm that these are authentic cards.
Yeah.
Because this goes on all the time. This is nothing new. This has been going on forever. So if you're thinking of bidding on large lots of cards, make sure that, number one, if there's packs in there, are they sealed or have they been opened? They're worthless once they've been opened. Of course, they pulled all the good cards out. With vintage cards especially, you either want them authenticated by PSA or one of the other Beckett. Ask a question, will they pass authentication? If you ask if they will pass authentication, the seller say, yes, I don't know. If I don't know, why should I bid on your cards if you don't think they'll pass authentication? And
Now, let's say this card here, even at a condition 4, is going to have a pretty decent value.
Oh yeah,
At
$400 or
a-
$500.
At an 8 or a 9.
Oh well, that you don't see those.
yeah.
That's thousands.
Yeah. So
And that's what caught my eye on first on this 53 Bowman. See, there's a crease there, and there's a little crease in that corner. You can see it, you just barely see it. Right here, there's a crease. And up here, but if you look at this cardboard, this is new. Look at feel the thickness of that and how. See.
yeah. And it even has a smoother finish.
Yes, and now here's an original card. Feel
Right. And you can feel
the texture in it.
The texture,
Yeah.
it's much more coarse.
Yes.
It's not as smooth.
But when you're bidding online, you can't feel
No.
them, you can't see them. So
The size is the same.
yeah,
So,
the
you know,
53 Bowmans were large.
They're larger cards. But one thing that you're looking for, if you want a higher dollar card, you're checking, are there creases on the card?
Corners,
How are the corners?
centering's very
Yeah.
important.
See how
These are all
look at the border on this one?
These are all too nice. I look at these.
Okay, so the border on that Dick Williams is a true card.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And see how the border's way to the left.
And that would affect it.
If you find mantles in this condition, all three of these with the centering nice, corners nice, no creases, you're talking hundreds of dollars for each card.
And wouldn't somebody, if they had a mantle card that nice, wouldn't it be in one of those graded plastic, can't get
Not
it out of?
especially. I've come across a lot of collections where they just had them in shoe boxes, didn't even have them in sleeves.
Oh my goodness.
the different services charge, it can be as much as $40 to have a card graded.
But a
Some-
card of this caliber is worth it.
Yes.
And I still think anybody, I know if you had these in your shop, and you asked me and I told you they were fake, you wouldn't try and pass them off as the real thing. You'd put, these are reprints and put $3 or $4 on it.
As soon as I knew they were not real,
Yeah.
I pulled them out of the case and stuck them down below so that hopefully I thought they would make things right,
Yeah.
but they didn't. So
Well, I
now,
think it's just very, very poor customer relations for that company. And matter of fact, I had a Muhammad Ali autographed photo that another auction house wanted to put up for sale. And I told them, if you don't get it authenticated, you're going to have to take maybe $30, $40 for it, just so somebody has it. I said, if you spend $150 to authenticate it, you could get up to $1,000 for it. So it was worth his time. He sent it in, got it authenticated, and got $870 for it, instead of 30 or 40 because it wasn't authenticated. So sometimes spending that extra money is well worth it. In this case, I'm sure this isn't the first sport cards this auction house has ever dealt with. If they knew these were real, they would have put them out individually. They wouldn't have had them in a box with 1,000 pieces of junk.
Yeah.
These would have all gone on individual auction sites if they were the real thing. There's just too many things involved in this that tell me they knew what they were doing.
And recently we had a consignor give us a Mickey Mouse card, and he said, I don't think this is real, but I haven't had it authenticated. We put it into auction and definitely put in there that this card is not authenticated. It's most likely not, it's a replica. I figured it would go about $8. I watched the auction. It got up to about 16, and then 2 people really wanted the card. A lot of times what happens, people come in late to an auction and they don't go down and read the description. And the card ended up selling for $86. The next day, I called the guy and I said, hey, I just had some cards that were sold as real that I found out were fakes, and they're not doing anything about it, so I'm a little sensitive about this. I said, I didn't think the card would go for nearly as much. What I will do is I will refund you your money and not send you the card. Or if you still want the card, because he was going to send it in and have it graded. So he was taking the chance at that point. He goes, I fully understand, and I'm willing to take that risk. It still made me a little cringe-worthy to send it off. I haven't heard anything back. You know, if it was real, he did
well.
well.
And that would be. We should probably look that one up and give him a buzz.
Yeah.
How long does it normally take to authenticate those cards?
It
when you send
depends.
them?
If you pay big money, you can get them back in 10 to 15 days, but that's very expensive. And they're so far behind on grading right now, sometimes it's taken 4 and 5 months to get them back.
Oh my
I
goodness.
sent in a bunch of basketball cards a year ago, and it took me 5 months to get them back. But and the thing is, we're not calling the auction house crooks. We're not accusing them of anything. It just looks shady, smells shady. You know, it just doesn't make sense to me how they sold this lot.
If they would have issued me a refund and I was sent the cards back, they could have dealt with their consignor and said, hey, you know, did you know? At that point, it's between them. It shouldn't come down to the consumer having to get some trash. And it's just very unfortunate. And I understand that they're a young auction company, but they're not going to get very old if they continue to send out items like this.
Well, they're going to run into an issue of if people know they can take their fake stuff to them and move it, they'll be flooded with. And not just this, somebody might bring a Tiffany lamp, you know.
Well, they did on the last phone call. They said, we do realize now that we have some cards that are replicas, and we're putting that in there. And it's like,
Well,
okay,
thanks a
that's
lot.
great,
Yeah.
but here you already sent some out that weren't. I still say you didn't know originally, but
And they could have seen these packs were taped. That tape's so obvious on the back of all the packs.
Yeah.
It's just shady. That's all.
so they do know now that they have replica cards, and they're still sending them out.
Well, maybe they've
But-
learned something too. Who knows?
Yeah, well, hopefully they did. I learned a very expensive lesson on this one, and
Try to keep other people from
yeah. So
falling into the trap.
I hope this helps a little bit on what to look for. Thank you, Chuck.
Always glad to help you.
It kind of sunk my heart when I found out they weren't real, but
They did a good job on them.
yeah.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Hopefully, you guys, everyone, learned a little something, and we'll catch you on the next video. Like and subscribe and all that other good stuff.